headquarters. It is not where the surrender discussions take place. They will take place in the Rice House, which is right there. And that house existed until the 60s when that company moved in and absolutely insisted that there's no other place in Stewart County that they could build their place other than that one. That's why the Rice House got knocked down. But they have a marker up there now to talk about it. There's the determinative sign right there that says location of the Rice House. This is also the Confederate supply depot for the garrison here at Fort Donelson. So the steamboats would come downstream, they would drop here, roll off their supplies. So imagine this area stacked up with boxes of ammunition and uniforms and shoes and food and everything else that they needed, and then wagons coming in and out, hauling things off to different parts of the garrison. We're behind the Confederate outer defenses, so this is safe until Union gunboats get past Fort Donelson. This is what they want to do, is get past the water batteries and get to this point and stop the 5 transports that were coming up 24 hours a day to get up this way. In fact, they knew when they were coming because they get a telegraph from Clarksville and say 1 boat just left, 2 boats just left. It's 36 river miles from here to Clarksville, which on a steamboat of that day would probably take about 5 or so hours to get from one place to the other. In fact, they know when they start doing the surrender discussions on the night of the 15th, they know the 2 steamboats are on the way, not only bearing more supplies, but bearing reinforcements, a 400-man Mississippi regiment. We'll talk about that as we get out of here. So this is the really important part that Grant is trying to cut off with the naval power, is to get to this point, and then once the Confederates lose this area, it's just a matter of time. They can no longer hold because there's no other place for them to get their supplies. Because no steamboat's going to come up and deal with the Union ironclad. They're not going to deal with the Union timberclad, much less anything else. And there's no ironclads on the Cumberland River for the Confederates at all. So that's the vital importance of this area. So we'll go on inside. You can see the Dover Hotel. They've got a little film. They got a setup exhibit now they didn't used to have until a couple of years ago. And then we'll walk at the Rice House and we'll talk a little bit about the surrender.
Is this the original structure?
I'm going to push the button and start the film. It's quite entertaining. And believe it or not, as handy as it is, it's very factual. Go ahead. Hopefully it's working. Yep, here we go. Here you go.
Daylight, I believe they will attack reinforced, and I cannot hold the position I now do for half an hour.
How so? How so, General?
Because at present I have barely 4,000 men. They're suffering from long, uninterrupted exposure and fighting. The enemy has been reinforced with fresh troops.
I disagree, sir. I believe you can hold your line.
I know my position.
It is the night of February 15th. The year is 1862. The Confederate foot soldiers guarding the rifle pits outside huddle near a fire in an attempt to fend off the bitter cold. They do not know yet, but it is their final night of guard duty. For as the soldiers keep watch, Commanding General Floyd and his staff decide their next move. Their decision, surrender.
General Johnston's army is already in Nashville.
Then our army has done its duty. It is our honor and our duty, gentlemen, to ask nothing more. To force our way out would cost us 3/4 of our men, and no commander, I believe, has the right to sacrifice men at such odds.
Gentlemen, if we can't cut our way out or fight on, there is no alternative left but capitulation. And I'm determined I will never surrender the command. Nor will I surrender myself a prisoner and die first.
Nor will I. I cannot and will not surrender. But I must confess personal reasons control me.
Such consideration shouldn't control a general's actions.
I'm aware of that, General Buckner. Nevertheless, that's my decision.
Gentlemen, there are no 2 people in the Confederacy the Yankees would rather capture than myself and General Floyd. Would you think it improper for you to break through the lines with me, General Floyd?
It's a question each man must decide for himself, General Pillow.
General Butler, do you think it would be improper for General Floyd?
As General Floyd has said, it is a question each officer must decide for himself. As for me, I feel it is my duty to remain with my men. I'll share their fate, whatever it might be.
Come in. Yes, Mr. Nicholson, what is it?
Colonel Forster's here, sir.
Show him in.
Are you gentlemen surrendering the command?
We are, Colonel Forrest.
I did not come to Fort Donelson to surrender my command. If my men will follow me, I intend to go out through the Yankee lines. If I save only one man,
Forrest, I'll take my chances with you. General Buckner, will you make the surrender?
Yes, General Floyd. Surrender is bitter. Would be to anyone. But in our present position, I can reconcile a surrender. But I will not separate my fortunes from those I command.
General Buckner, if I place you in command, may I draw out my brigade?
Yes, if you'll do it before Grant acts on my communication.
General Pillow, I turn over my command.
I pass it.
I assume it. Bring me paper.
Gentlemen, what should I do?
Cut your way out.
Gentlemen, is there anything wrong with my leaving?
Every man must judge for himself on that.
And I'll retire.
Time to go. Is it a mistake just now? Where do they get the guy with the plans?
Left with the responsibility, General Buckner prepares to surrender while the others slip away to Nashville. Buckner and the Union General Grant were once classmates at West Point, and many of Buckner's staff officers were known and highly respected by the Union officers. But now, General Buckner will agree to the terms his friend and former classmate demands. Unconditional surrender.
All right, let's go outside. We'll talk about what happened. A magazine written after the war by one of the Confederate staff officers that was here that gives us the most detail about what went on that night in the discussions between the three generals. Some of the dialogue that you just saw is taken from that account in Confederate Veteran magazine. What it does not show you is the man that actually first proposed to surrender the garrison was Simon Bolivar Buckner. And it's to the point where the other two guys just basically beat down on him and beat down on him and beat down on him in these discussions, which went on for quite some time until finally Buckner said, okay, we'll go ahead and surrender the garrison, because he did not think he could hold the position that he was in. That position where we went back where I showed you, where they bent the line back, overlooking the bodacious ravine, he didn't think he could hold that. I think he could have. But I think, in my opinion, he's fed up to here with two incompetent boobs who are his superior officers. So as the discussion goes on, there's a number of things about how much of the garrison can we get out. Are any roads open? They order Forrest to go out and do some scouting. After Forrest comes in and basically says, I'm not going to keep my boys here, we're going to go out. And the word goes out to the garrison that anybody that wants to come with me can come. Infantrymen, other cavalrymen, whatever, we're going out. So he will go out with a couple scouts, or actually he'll send a couple scouts out first to try to check the Forge Road. And they come back reporting that they see campfires and they see heads in the distance, they think, and all this stuff, and they think the Federals have closed the Forge Road escape. In point of fact, they have not. Forrest will write out in his own personal reconnaissance, after being informed when Dr. Smith shows up, who owns the house at the Smith Fort, which Forrest and his troops will eventually use to escape from here. And Dr. Smith says, I can take you and show you the ford down that will take as part of the Church Road. So they'll go out the Church Street Road that parallels the modern Charlotte Road that way. They'll go over the ridge and then down into the Lick Creek Valley there. And Forrest will look and he'll see no Federal troops. The only campfires that they see are wounded Confederates or Federals that have created fires just to try to keep warm during the night. There are no combat troops ready to pick an engagement or anything like that. It's just the wounded and the dying lying on the ground. So Forrest gets to the bank of the creek and he's got a couple of officers with him and says, I would like a volunteer to ride out and see how deep it is. Well, nobody does it. So Forrest will ride out into Lick Creek and he describes that it is called saddle skirt deep. So the saddle skirt on his horse is probably going to be about here. So that's the deep. So we're looking at waist deep on me. So he will go back and he will order his command, which includes Gant's 9th Tennessee Battalion and one of the Kentucky companies, to escape. So we're going to escape, you're coming with me. Well, these Kentuckians decide to stay and Gant refuses to obey the orders. Gant had also been the rear guard of Hyman's army coming from Fort Henry over to here, and they were supposed to protect from Union pursuit, and they stampeded through the Confederate column and abandoning their rear guard orders, And for that, a battery of light artillery was captured by the pursuing Federals on Standing Rock Creek. So Gant and Forrest are not seeing eye to eye. Gant really does not think much of him, and these guys are going to stay. So the word will go, and infantrymen will come up to Forrest camp. They says, I hear you're breaking out, may I go with you? And he will. Forrest will take probably about 1,000 men out with him. The infantrymen will wade the creek, the cavalrymen will ride through the creek, and they will keep marching and marching and marching, and within 2 days they will show up at Nashville. When Grant takes the surrender of the fort, he does not have a provost situation set up. He wants to bag the garrison, but he's got nothing planned to, what do we do with all these Confederate prisoners of war? And he's going to end up bagging about 13,000. There's about 17,000 and change that are here. You're going to have some combat casualties. You have Forrest taking about 1,000 out. Another 1,000 or so will literally, because Grant is so lax on the provost side, he basically tells Buckner, you run the provost for me, and you tabulate, the names so I know how many prisoners there are, so I can telegraph back up north to get the proper amount of steamboats and food and all this other kind of stuff to take care of you people. And because the provost is like a sieve, one of the newspaper accounts says that one of the people captured here is Brigadier General Bushrod R. Johnson, another one of the Ohio-born Confederate generals. Well, yeah, he was. Until he and his staff are strolling along, minding their own business. He got to Manny's battery. They look around the other way, and go, nope, no blue bellies here. They marched out. About 1,000 more guys marched out. So at least 2,000 men of the 17,500 man garrison get out of here. They balance are going to be combat casualties. You're looking at about 13,000 prisoners of war. As the steamboats come back, they will start to ship them up north, and they'll go to places like Alton, Illinois, Camp Morton in Indiana, Camp Butler, Springfield, Camp Douglas, a number of other prisoner camps. If you look at some of the northern newspapers, they have very detailed articles on which prisoners are going where. The black body servants that were here refused to be liberated. Of course, that wasn't a warning at the time. Refused to be repatriated. They went north to the POW camps with the officers that they served. And these guys will be exchanged over the course of the late summer and into fall of 1862. Buckner again is back in the Army by August because he will take part of the Kentucky campaign. But a lot of the troops don't get exchanged until about August. So imagine instead of the 2,000 or so troops that'll end up at Shiloh out of this, if, say 10 or 12,000 of these troops ended up at Shiloh. At about 6 that morning, here come the two steamboats from Clarksville carrying 400 men of a Mississippi regiment. Floyd, as you saw in the movie, decides to take his brigade out. How is he going to do that? When the boats dock, it's, oh, you'll have a great time here. Welcome to Fort Donelson. We have fabulous amenities for you. Just file on over that way, and somebody will take you to where your position is. Come on, my brave Virginians, off we go. And he posts the 20th Mississippi in an outward curve with their bayonet-fixed rifles pointing outward because the word has now gotten out that Floyd's people are bugging out. And they start to crowd the boat landing, and that's what the 20th Mississippi is trying to do, is keep these guys away. They're also looking very nervously over their shoulders like, they better not leave us if they know what's good for them. Meanwhile, Floyd's boys are being taken back and forth across the river, ferry to that side, they get off and start marching towards Clarksville. Finally, the last boatload of them pulls away, leaving the 20th Mississippi here, and off they go downriver. And the 20th Mississippi's like, that's so-and-so. This is a family show. I can't repeat probably what the colonel of the 20th Mississippi said. Now, the story goes that one reason why Floyd was afraid to be captured is he had been Secretary of War prior to the Civil War, and that because of his position and being so prescient that the war was going to happen, he is shifting munitions from northern arsenals to southern arsenals. That has been completely repudiated by the evidence of he does that because of what happened in Harper's Ferry in 1859, the John Brown affair. He's afraid of other slave uprisings, and he wants to make sure the southern arsenals have the weapons and munitions to deal with a large-scale slave revolt should something take place. There's been documentation that pretty much proves that, as opposed to, gee, in 2 years a war will break out, I better make sure these southern arsenals are, he's not that smart. He's not looking into a crystal ball. It's to deal with a possible slave insurrection. Now, what happens to Pillow? Pillow and his staff get a raft of sorts, and they float their horses across the river, and they ride on to Clarksville and get to Nashville. Forrest will get to Nashville, and he's going to be put in charge of the provost there, unloading the commissary and quartermaster warehouses onto the trains and getting the trains out of Nashville as quickly as they can. Vernon K. Stevenson, who was the president of the Nashville and Chattanooga Railroad, was the Tennessee State quartermaster for the Tennessee State troops before they joined the Confederate Army, and he bravely flees in his beautiful custom car, tacked onto the last train leaving Nashville to the disgust of Forrest. Finally, what food the Confederates can't get out, they throw it open to the people of Nashville, and then force will take